Hello, I'm Angela, and today I'm going to show you some ideas that you could do yourself at home for Christmas. I'm going to start with this one here, which I call a botanical show and tell. It means that you can bring things in from the garden or the hedgerow or buy flowers from the supermarket, and you can just pop them into the various tubes that I have here, and you can always have a constant display then of things that you have got outside and bring the season in. So this is going to be geared towards Christmas, but it really could be for any season. The construction is made of a very heavy wooden base at the bottom here, and then we have dowling which has been placed inside, some drilled holes, and then some glass test tubes that have been added, and they're of various sizes. So if you've got chunkier stems or bigger flowers, they can go in the big tubes, and then finer stems can go in the smaller ones. We have a very regimented look at the moment with the dowling because it's very straight, man-made, and also I've added some birch twigs here just to start off the natural look there. The birch has got a tiny little bit of glitter on, not one for glitter and sparkle normally, but it's very, very subtle, and I quite like that. It looks a little bit frosted. So I'm going to start by putting in some flowers, and one of the flowers that I really love, it is available all year round, but the flower that I have chosen for today is the lily, and this is the beautiful Longiflorum lily here. This is my favourite scent in the lily. They have gorgeous trumpet-shaped flowers and the most beautiful, quite soft scent compared to the oriental lilies. So I'm going to place these in, and I want to keep quite a bit of the length going on them. So I'm going to place these fairly low down in the design, in the tubes on the lower level. So just cutting them through there and then placing them in. So these give a nice line, they give a strong vertical line to the design, and then they have a lovely right angle on them, so they get a good horizontal look with the flower. So we've got multi-direction there. These are absolutely gorgeous. Of course, they are often referred to as the Easter lily. And they are beautiful at that time of the year as well. But for me, they are very, very suitable for Christmas as well, or winter. And I particularly like the white. It's a winter white, not too creamy, and it's not too stark in its real strong white colour. If you wanted to, if you had wayward flowers or foliages, you could always attach the flower to the dowling, and that would give you a little bit more control over the direction of them, or their sort of stability. Bringing some lower to draw the eye down and ground the design in a little bit, bringing some to the lower level of test tubes and shorter. There we go. So that's the Longi lilies there. Aren't they beautiful? I love the fact that they've got a lot of green on the outside, and the buds, before they come out, they're nice and green. So green, I've got a thing about green. I love green flowers, don't we all actually? But I love green flowers, and I also I love just the colour green, anything green. So there we have the Longi. I'm going to add some foliage in now. And for this I've chosen some ivy. This is just from the hedgerow. I've selected very fine pieces which are really not going to overpower what we've already got in there. And the idea with the design, the overall look is fairly ethereal, so you should be able to see through at the end. So it's a little bit of restraint needed and not overcrowding it. So we're just, they're a little bit wayward, some of them, but that's what I want now, because I want a little bit of movement to create rhythm through, move the eye from one side to the other, and as if they're sort of dancing in the space that they have. There we go. And then it wouldn't be Christmas without holly, would it? And I've selected a few pieces here which are just some fine, again, quite fine, tailored pieces. I've snipped off any larger leaves that I don't want, so they're nice, quite pretty little small leaves at the tip there. And I've selected pieces without berries on because I want to create the red from the berries with another item, and I'll show you that in a moment. Also, the berries grow sometimes in great big clusters, and actually that's not what I want. I want quite nice dainty berries, so I'm sort of tailoring it again to what I want it to look like. So popping some of these into the tubes at varying heights so that the eye travels again up and down, and it makes it for more interest in the movement in the design. I actually love holly, but it's the sort of thing, you know, you'd only use it at Christmas, wouldn't you? So I always try to make sure I do use it and quite maximise on it as well, on the use of holly, not necessarily in this design, but generally I love to use it. And I like the contrast of the leaf shape compared to the ivy or the lilies. The lilies are very smooth with strap-shaped leaves, and this is, you know, they've got a leaf shape more or less all of their own. So the red that I was talking to you about is going to be achieved by these berries here. And I just love this sort of wild hedgerow look. And you know, okay, there's just a few on that one, but collectively they're going to give that sort of real airy look. And they're a beautiful deep dark red, much darker than I'd get on my holly in the garden. And I've defoliated this one so that you only focus purely on the berries, not the leaves. So the leaves of, this is a Cotoneaster, and the leaves of the Cotoneaster are not their best feature. And especially now in the autumn, they're really very, you know, they're dropping quite a bit now. They're very loose. So I'm just going to snip these off collectively. And then place them in. So, as I say, I quite like the sort of skeletal feel that these give to the arrangement. And also some of them have got beautiful curves. So again, we're drawing the eye through. They're various lengths. So it will give rhythm by repetition throughout the composition. Putting the tall ones in first. I love the contrast of that dark red and the white and the dark green. To me, that's very Christmassy. Some people would love, you know, lots of red and green, but I like something a little bit different maybe. But the red, I really do like the red for Christmas, but it's in a minimal amount. Some smaller ones. With these, because they're so sort of skinny, you have to cut quite a few just to get a little bunch with enough impact. But can you see how the red is now coming through? Very nice dark red. And you automatically twin, your eye twins with the holly, because you think green holly, red berries. But maybe if you didn't look that closely, you wouldn't notice that they weren't growing on the same plant. Whoops. I was going to say put my glasses on, but I've got them on. There we go. Nice angles. There. So that's a sprinkling of the dark red coming through. Quite dramatic, I think, with the white. Another beautiful flower that I have here is this one, and these are the Eucharis grandiflora. Aren't they gorgeous? And what I really love about these is the clean, such a clean white. A lot of flowers that you get that are white, they're actually creamy, but these are so white, and they're a beautiful, beautiful form, star-shaped flower, and it has a limey green centre to it. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'm just going to snip them. And then I really enjoy their sleek stems, very fluid stems there, and they give a nice clean linear look, which is what we're looking for in here. So now I'm going to place these. These are quite a chunky stem, so we'll go for the larger tubes on this occasion. The flowers are quite delicate, and they do have a long vase life, but what you need to do is a bit of deadheading, and what you'll do is just whip off the ones that are mature, and that will bring on the further buds. So can you see how now we're showing and telling? We're looking at all different materials that you can bring in, and it can be, obviously, it can be for your choice, things that you enjoy looking at and that you get pleasure from. There we go. I'm going to snip that one a little bit shorter. There. So we have now another variety, flower form, and a little bit of a cleaner white added in, just showing up against that greeny, creamy longiflorum. Now what about this? I stopped the other day and dragged this out of the hedgerow, defoliated it, but I absolutely adore it, and to me it says winter. I mean, it's autumn, winter, but I love the texture of it, the colour, just before it goes grey. So this is the wild clematis, or old man's beard, or traveller's joy, I believe it's known as well. And because it's generally got a nice curve to it, we're going to bring in those arching stems to draw the eye through. Again, lots of different direction. We do not want it regimented. So look at that, is that beautiful? With the test tubes, you just need to, for maintenance, you just need to keep them topped up. So it might need a little bit of an eye on them, the water level on them. So we use something like this, which is very easy to just slip into the top and squeeze it a little bit, and then the water will just top up very easily. So let's turn it round and there's a bit of space over here for this big reaching one. There we go. That's a bit wayward. So you just have to tailor it to where you've got space for it to sort of roam freely, just like it does outside. More. Let's go that way. Again, before it matures, this goes very grey when it's very mature, but before it matures, it has gorgeous green, little green pieces in the middle there of the seed head. Very attractive. Last piece. Bring that down into this space here. There we go. So that's the old man's beard. So we are quite ethereal still. And again, like I say, just want to maintain that look between the pieces. And another beautiful white, very lovely white flower is this one here, which has a gorgeous frilly flower to it. And this is the nerine. And in the winter or autumn winter, we have gorgeous pink ones in the garden. But this is the white one. Isn't that a beautiful, open, airy form? Absolutely lovely. So I'm going to place these. Again, they have, like the Eucharis, they have these gorgeous, sleek stems, and that gives them a very clean look. And it also suits this design because that's what I want to maintain. If we put anything in too branchy, then we might lose that. There we go. So we're trying to cap the energy at this sort of level here. So as the eye looks, you don't take the eye up and out. We're going to keep the cap on the energy and drive the eye and the interest back into the design. So there's nothing too dominant, but there are lots of interesting forms and colour contrasts. These have a very good long vase life, the nerines. Not too much water because the stems go a little bit squishy. So just a little bit of water and then you're good to go with these. The pink ones are much more, I think, readily available in gardens, but the white ones I've only really ever seen commercially, but you might have them in your garden. I'm not sure how common they are, how commonly grown they are in the gardens. Bringing some down. Last one. So as you progress, it's a case of where you've got room in the tubes to put the flowers. So the next thing I've got is this pine here, and this are just a few sprigs out of the garden, but this will just draw the eye down, give some visual weight to the base of the design. So I'm going to snip those. I didn't want big pieces because it will could easily overtake and dominate in the design. So now we're drawing the colour of the green down. So in the overall composition, it's balanced, and especially seasonally, it's harmonious. So when I'm selecting the materials for this, that is what I wanted to achieve. Seasonal harmony. Okay, that's the pine. So that's all I've got for this one now, but the only thing I wanted to add to it is because I realised that at the end of selecting my materials, I realised that I had all bulb flowers, and so I thought I would add in some of these bulbs here, and these are the bulb of the Hippeastrum. And they're yet to flower, they're yet to bloom, but they're a beautiful form, and I really like the botanical look of them. So I'm going to place them on, they've still got the roots on here now, and they could be placed into water or into soil, but they're used as a decorative element at the moment. Place them on some moss, and I'm going to just sit those onto the base, and that again will now draw the eye down, give some stronger, bolder form at the base, and is again relevant to the plant material that I have in the content of the design, and it gives, again, as I say, strengthens the botanical feel of the overall composition. So there we have the Christmas Botanical Show and Tell. The next design I'm going to show you is a design for the season of Advent, and as you'll know, this is the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas Day, or the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas Day, and each week you will light a candle. So on the first week light 1 candle, second week 2 candles, etc. And it's a lovely time for contemplation and for reflection in those weeks leading up to Christmas, when you have all the excitement of Christmas at the end of it. But in the weeks leading up to it, it's really nice to have, for my own family Christmases, we used to have Sunday tea and light the Advent candles, and that's something I've taken through into my own family life with my children. And I still do it now as well. So I'm going to show you how I've constructed this base. I'm trying to work very much more ecologically conscious, and I'm not using a foam frame on this one. So we have a wreath ring, a mossed wreath base, and that's made onto a wire wreath ring, and then sphagnum moss put onto it, and then that's been placed onto a base here, and then into the base I've put in the wonderful ivy here, the hedgerow, the trailing ivy, and I've tried to recreate that natural hedgerow style. So there's lots of movement, it looks very natural and wild, and that's exactly how I wanted it to be, as if it was growing. So we have here the larger leaves, the berries and the trails here on the stems, and I've put them into the moss base. So what, in practical terms, what we'll have to do is perhaps for the 4 weeks we need long-lasting materials, and so the moss base needs to be nice and moist to start with, damp, really lovely damp lush moss, and then we're going to place the materials in. And what I would do at home is I would bring it in on the Sunday, light the candle, enjoy it, and then I would move the item outside or to the garage or to a porch where it's cold and damp, where you get moisture to the materials so it won't dry out too quickly, and that way it will give you pleasure for the whole of the 4 weeks of the Advent season. I've also placed in some little jars to take some fresh materials that perhaps wouldn't last that well in moss. So I don't know if you can see, let's show here, we've got these glass jars here. So there's just 4 of those that have been placed through, and they will accept materials that need water or they're more thirsty, need more water than perhaps things that will go into moss. So lots of the foliage is evergreen foliage, really long lasting, strong, hardy stuff from outside, and that will be fine. Twigs, we've got lichen twigs here, lots of texture, different colours of greens, berries, so they'll all be fine within the moss. So I'm going to carry on now. I've added these materials here. I'm going to place in this material here, which is the Nobilis pine, blue pine, very strong, hardy material, and I'm going to place these in small sprigs, and that just gives another texture and another colour, and it shouts Christmas, doesn't it? It really does shout Christmas. And I really like using lots of foliage that I can get from the hedgerow or even buy it, but I don't really want to buy too much, if I'm honest. I get most of it from the garden. But this is one thing I don't have in my garden, and I don't mind paying for it because it's such a long laster and has a gorgeous scent to it when you're using it. It just makes you feel very seasonal. So it's really a lovely material for the Christmas designs. To get the materials into the moss, you could wire them, put a wire on the base and put them in that way, anchor them that way, but I'm going to use a stick, like a little skewer here, and make a hole in the moss and then place the material in. So that's just a little bit labour intensive, but we just make a little hole, find the hole again and then place the pine into that. And we really want sort of lots of multi-direction, beautiful movement and rhythm within the design. So that's how I'm going to proceed. So now all the Nobilis pine has been added, and as you can see, I've spread it around the whole of the ring, distributed it evenly around. So now we've got a good sprinkling of that gorgeous pine, the lovely grey Nobilis pine all the way around. I'm now going to add in some fir cones, and this again, lovely Christmas component, and I've added a wire on these to anchor them into the ring, and I'm just going to show you, for anybody who hasn't seen that before, how to do that. So you take a wire, a florist wire, a stub wire, length of wire, place it into the base of the fir cone where it starts to open out, where you can get the wire in, take the wire round as tight as you can, and then twist. I'm holding the wire still and twisting the fir cone. So twist the fir cone like that, that will tighten it, and then you've got a wire for anchoring, a wire leg for anchoring it into the mossed ring. So I'm going to add these in. If you're a very neat person, which I'm not, but if you are, then you might want to have a little bit more order, a bit more of a sense of order to this arrangement. But for me, I'm just going to sort of scatter the fir cones a little bit more randomly, so as if they've sort of just dropped and they've sort of bounced and landed where they are. So we can do that, but you might want to just do it in clusters, more sort of regular clusters, if you like that effect. I know if you are a very neat person, sometimes doing things randomly is quite difficult. But for me, I find it fairly easy because I'm just not a neat person. You don't want to see my spare room, do you? It's very messy. All my bits and pieces, like lots of us flower arrangers. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's got bits and pieces around. So that's just the nature of our hobby, I think, is having lots of accessories and items around the house or in sheds, or sorry, your studio. Call our shed our studio, don't we? So these are going in really easily, and you could maybe, if you've got a drill, you could drill them and put a wooden skewer if you don't want to use the wire. You could glue them in, and that's another way. So we have those, and this is bringing another form into the arrangement now, another form, another colour, natural colour. If you like things a bit more glitzy, you could put some glitter on, spray them with colour if you like, but I'm trying to work very naturally. Okay, so we're drawing the eye up and out. So some are placed up into the top here and some more on the outside edge. So now we're going to add in something into the containers, and this is a really beautiful grey material, bringing the grey of the noblest pine, and it's Senecio maritima, and it has a gorgeous leaf shape, this one, but it's quite a delicate it's not as robust as these to go into the moss. So we're going to pop these into the jars of water. So for that, I'm going to just snip them off, and the jars of water these are my markers here for the jars of water. Okay, so I know where they are because they're rather disguised and hidden underneath all the greenery, aren't they? So we're going to find the jar by removing the marker, and then I can find that to place into that. So that will now drink to its heart's content. It won't be in the moss, but it's still another texture and colour. So just turn that round so you can see. And here we have it here. And it's a very much paler material. And like I said, a bit more delicate, but I really like the contrast and the addition of the different texture and leaf form within the overall composition. So I've got 4 jars, so we've got 4 pieces of the Senecio here. So taking the marker out, nestling it in, there we go. Adding that one in. We don't want everything in your face, so it's this type of design, especially as you've got it for 4 weeks. The more you look, the more you'll see. So you've got lots of detail and interest. Now, these might not last 4 weeks, but they'll last a good 2 or 3 weeks, and then you can just replace the ones in the water. Most of this will last for the 4 weeks. So I'm really loving all the movement here and the wild effect. And also it's been raised up on the urn here. So it means it's just, we've got that space underneath, which just elevates it to show the whole form there, rather than having it flat on the table. That's just a personal taste thing. Some more grey, and this is the silver thread plant. And I've just wired those into units there, and they're going to be placed in. Again, it's another texture, another different leaf. It's not really leaf, but another form of plant material. So I'm going to place those in between the Senecio to create the repetition of the grey. So just turn it round for you. So there we have that one there. Very interesting plant. You can plant it in the garden or in a pot maybe, and then you can bring it in if you need to. There's the silver thread plant. Then we have some dried material, and this is the ideal time to use dried material because we can harvest it in the autumn, like, you know, in sort of September, October. And this is the beautiful translucent honesty or lunaria. Isn't that gorgeous? So you take the outer outer casing off of the disc here, and it reveals this beautiful pearl-like disc. and I've just taken them down into small sections and wired them onto a wire for anchoring. But I really love the effect that that's going to bring throughout. So any dried material that you can use, I would say, you know, it's great to get something for free from the garden. And honestly, I never tire of how beautiful it is, of how ethereal it is. And I was keeping some from the garden, and my husband said to me, "What are you doing with that? It's just a weed." And I went, "Oh, but it's a beautiful weed, look at it." And I can't believe that someone would call it a weed, because it's just such a treasure. It's like finding jewels in the garden. It really is. So for me, this is an absolute joy and delight to find, keep and use in your floral arrangements. You can use them any time of the year. They look lovely on their own. And I remember my nan, she used to have a little jar in the kitchen of things from the garden. So that was like her show and tell all those years ago. And she used to have honesty and the Chinese lanterns and some bracken in there. And it just was, you know, the simplest sort of decoration. But really very, very lovely and so natural, and just showing, you know, things from the earth that we are given. Absolutely gorgeous. So there's the last one going in there. If you're going to put candles into your wreath ring, I'm going to place mine into the middle, but if you're going to put them in, obviously you would need to be careful with the dried materials that they're not a fire risk near the flame as the flame burns down. So now I'm going to add a little bit of colour in, and for that I'm going to use this contrasting holly here with the red berries. So we're bringing all the winter Christmas colours through, keeping it nice and natural. So these are the berries of the holly, and I have been a little bit brutal with this, in as much that I've snipped out the tops, because sometimes you can't see the berries for the mass of green leaves at the top, because they grow further down. So I've made just some pieces, because these are going to nestle in, so you won't actually notice that I've snipped some of the tops off. But that's what I've done. I've tailored them so that the berries are the first thing that you look at, as opposed to the leaves. Okay, so I'm going to place these in, and I'm going to do that in the same fashion by using my little dibber here to make a hole, because they might get some resistance. I've mossed the ring really, really quite firmly to be sure of a good anchoring base, and therefore sometimes it's difficult to get the materials in sort of, you know, they don't just slide in easily, and you don't want that to happen, because they could slide out just as easily as well. So there we go, just show you that one there. So nestling the red berries in there, and they're shining like jewels now, aren't they, out of the greenery and the garden material. So I'm going to carry on and add a few more, and they will be distributed evenly throughout. So the red berries now are sprinkled through, and they're vibrant there against the green, creating a complementary colour harmony, and they've got a lovely sprinkling all the way round so that they're evenly distributed there. Lovely clusters, beautiful berries. So now I'm going to add in some more berries, and this is the snowberry, and this is by contrast a beautiful white berry. So clean and wax-like texture to it, and these are on a woody stem. I've defoliated again so that we're only focusing on the berries that are there and not the leaves. So really very open and airy. So these are going to be placed into the moss base, and they will just place in like that, and I want them sort of to be coming up and out, so it's nice and airy and creating lots of volume and life and energy throughout. They can be going multi-directional, so they can be going in different, some this way, some that way, and that will create a great energy to the design. There we go. These grow in the garden, of course, and they do come in a couple of different colours. There's a beautiful pink one, there's one called lemon and lime, and they will, that's a sort of more of a greeny colour. And again, this is contrasting with the red, the green, but it's also picking up the white, translucent colour of the honesty. So they look really clean against the dark green, don't they? There we go. So that's the Symphoriocarpus placed in there and giving lots of airiness to the top of the wreath. So there we have all of the materials into the Advent wreath, and now all we're going to do is add the candles. For this I chose some very clean white candles, pillar candles. They have a gorgeous rustic texture to them, the exterior, and these are going to be placed in here. If you're going to move the arrangement, they might need to be fixed in and anchored in really well, or if there's any danger of it moving, then you don't want them to topple over. But on this one, I'm placing them into the centre. I've put a little bit of a bank into the centre here so that they're raised up in the centre of the wreath. So we'd light one per week as you go towards Christmas, the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas Day. And if you have a more religious aspect to the ring, then you would choose different coloured candles for symbolism for the 4 weeks. But there we have the 4 candles within the Advent wreath. I'm now going to show a tablescape. The definition of a tablescape is very simple. It's an arrangement of articles on a table. So it's quite simple, nothing complicated. But I really love doing this at home, and it means that I can bring out all my little bits and pieces that I've got at home. And I don't mean, trinkets and things. I just mean I can recycle things. If I've got a few little jars and bottles, that type of thing. I bought some little star plates, which I think are very interesting, lovely candles. And so you can use the tablescape arrangement. You can use it as a permanent fixture on your table, maybe a hall table, a console table, or on a sideboard, and have it out on, all year round if you want to, or for special occasions, so you can make it seasonal, or for occasions like Easter or birthday, etc. So this is obviously for Christmas, but you can also actually put it on your table, which is what I do, make a nice arrangement, because I just enjoy arranging items and materials, flowers, foliage, etc., berries, that type of thing, into the tablescape. But if it's too much when you actually want to sit down and eat, then you can just remove a few items, leave a few things on, and then build it back up again when the meal is over. So it's never going to be too much, because you can always change it according to how much room you've got and how many people, what type of meal it might be. So I've laid out, as you can see, an array of objects here, and we have some candlesticks, we have bottles with candles in. This is a recycled bottle, and I thought it was quite sweet to just put a few little elements, botanical elements, inside the bottle. And also I just put a tiny bit of glitter. It's not, I'm not glittery, as I said earlier, but I think with all natural, sometimes you just need something, a little bit of shine to lift the natural materials, especially in the night light. That actually is when everything gets very dull if it's all natural. So a small amount of sparkle will just catch the light and give that lovely atmosphere, festive atmosphere. So this can elevate your dining table or elevate an occasion and make it feel very special with not really very much effort. So I've colour themed mine, and that obviously gives a little bit more impact to the occasion and the setting. So I'm going to put a few natural materials through the tablescape here, and I'm going to start that by making a hand-tied assembly. So I'm going to use some white and green flowers. I'm going to start off by using these gorgeous roses here, and these have the most beautiful scent. a gorgeous velvety texture of the petals there, and as you look into them, they're just such a beautiful form. But this one's called Norma Jean, and as I said, the scent is really lovely. So I'm going to just use these. I've stripped all of the stems, and I'm going to add in some pieces of material, very sort of light. It's not to be too big because this doesn't want to be too dominant on the table or in the tablescape. This is a hellebore called Winter Bells, very pretty one. Small amount of lavender, again quite aromatic. So you don't want anything too heady. If it's flowers and food, nothing too highly scented, but the Norma Jean rose and the lavender is not really, they're not overpowering. Some ivy berries there, which are a different form, an open, airy, bubbly sort of form there with a gorgeous light green colour to them, so it's going a bit like that. Then we have these spray roses here. This one is called White Lady, and it's quite a full rose, and again I chose it because it's quite a clean white, same as the Norma Jean, not too creamy but quite clean and sharp, crisp colour. This one's an interesting material, and this is Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe, and it actually, you can get it as a house plant, but this is the cut flower variety that I've got here. So it's a much longer stem than you'd probably get on a house plant. But if you like it and you just want small stems, I would recommend buying a small plant. You can get them in the supermarkets very inexpensively, and they have a superb vase life. They really do last a long time. It's a succulent stem, so it holds its water, and that one has got lots of buds to come out on it. So that's the Kalanchoe White Meadow. So bringing in the roses now, we're going for a domed profile here. The panicum grass is a very pretty light grass, and it just gives some airiness to the arrangement. Bringing in the hellebores, and then some more of the spray roses. Just using the spiral method to assemble it. Got a small amount of holly in there to bring a dark green and different leaf form there. Just bringing it through into a domed profile. And then some decorative elements here, and these are just some baubles which I've put onto a bamboo skewer so I can place these in, and again, like I say, that'll just bring a little bit of shine coming through. So it just adds a bit of a decorative, got some matte decorative elements there, and also a little tree shape. And I did say I liked green, didn't I? Well, I love green, so here we go with a green Christmas tree shape there to go in. So the thing with the hand tide is you can just adjust it as you go along if it becomes a little bit misshapen. Finishing off with some mature ivy, and that's just going to give us a little bit of flow over the side of the glass container that it will be placed into. So it's quite informal. We're not talking about, real dinner party sort of formal arrangements. We're just talking about things that are placed informally. So that's the finished shape, and I'm going to tie it off with a little bit of this paper covered wire. So, of course, flowers with food, you do need to be a little bit careful. And so anything that's poisonous would not be a good idea. Anything that emits pollen as it matures, not a great idea. Things like leatherleaf fern does that. So things that are nice and clean, not lots of greenery. If you're going to use greenery that's maybe being foraged, then it's probably a good idea to wash it first before you place it on your table so you don't have creepy crawlies coming out of it. But, just that's all common sense. But sometimes, we get carried away with our wild, natural look. And obviously, it's up to you how you want to arrange your tablescape. And if you're not eating on the table, it doesn't really matter at all. So I'm just going to snip these stems now to a length where it will go into the container. And then this is going to be placed just in the centre here in this vase of water. So I've got that as the central piece. When we're sitting down eating on a table, the flowers and accessories need to be low enough to see over or high enough to see under. Unless, of course, you want to block out the person on the other side, which you may want to do. So I'm going to now add in, I've got some other containers of water, and I'm going to place in some pre-made little hand ties. So I've got these ones here like this, they're slightly smaller. One of the little elements in these is this very sweet little cyclamen flower. Can you see that? The cyclamen flower there has a gorgeous form there where it turns back on itself. Just tucked in there. There we go. And it's really a beautiful form, a different form than we've already got in the other flowers. And again, clean white. That was plucked from a plant. So actually a little house plant of cyclamen, or you might have it in your garden. Again, has a very delicate scent to it and is very attractive. So just placing those in there, and another one here. So the distribution is quite even as it goes through. You've got a stronger, bolder form in the middle and then lighter weight towards the edge. I've also framed the tablescape with the highest materials here, so they actually cap the energy there from going out too fast. So we're always going to be looking back in to the area. Some smaller ones in smaller bottles. With these I've added in some heuchera leaves, which has a really very zesty lime green leaf, heuchera. Small amount of sparkle there. The cyclamen is a bit more prominent there. And also this one here is a bouvardia, and that one's called Diamond Sparkles, and it's a double flowered bouvardia. Very, very pretty. And then we have the snowberry too. There we go. And now I'm going to add in some decorative elements into the tablescape, and I'm going to do that with some baubles. So you might like to have shiny baubles, but I've chosen to have the matte finish on mine. I've got some star shapes here in the green, and they're just sort of more or less randomly placed in. And as another natural element, I'm going to put out some cones, a fir cone, just as a, another colour, another texture, another form, and that just brings the natural element to it. So all that's left to do now is to light the candles. So I hope you've enjoyed this selection, and I hope it's given you some ideas of what you can do in your homes at Christmas.